The Milwaukee Bucks dropped a game last night against the Atlanta Hawks that they should have won, and now their best player might be out for a while. And we'll get to it right after the bumper. What's going on, everybody? It's Jeff Lightsey Jr. here with the Black Boss channel and Victory Formation. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload every single day. Now, the Atlanta Hawks have tied the series against the Milwaukee Bucks 2-2 after a win last night in Atlanta without Trae Young. Now, this game was going back and forth for a while, and then in the second half, Milwaukee started to get some momentum. They never could get the lead, but they started to get some momentum after starting off sluggish and slow to start the game. But during the third quarter is when their best player, Giannis Antetokounmpo, went down with an apparent knee injury. And just be honest, he needed some help off the court. It didn't look good. And so this leaves this series in jeopardy for the Bucks. Even though Trae Young may play in game 5, may not play in game 5, Atlanta coming away with a 110-88 win over the Bucks. And Giannis going down with the injury is not a good sign. It does not bode well for the Bucks. It does not bode well for their chances the rest of the playoffs because Giannis, obviously, he has his struggles at the free throw line. He has his struggles shooting the three-pointer. But Giannis is the best player in this series. We can't act like Giannis isn't the best player in this series. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Do you believe there's a better player in this series than Giannis Antetokounmpo? No, there's not. And to lose that game, or to be losing that game without Trae Young playing, Trae Young didn't play at all. It was announced an hour before the game that Trae Young would not suit up, and Milwaukee came out flat, Giannis included. I mean, Giannis airballed 3 free throws to start the game. He airballed 3 free throws to start the game. They came out super flat, like just crazy flat, and then Giannis gets hurt. And so now your series is in jeopardy because your best player is hurt. You don't know how long he's going to miss. And while he is recovering, Trae Young is getting better and could potentially be back by game 5, which is Atlanta's best player. And they won by 20 without him. So this is not a good sign for the Milwaukee Bucks. This is not a good sign for the NBA. And here's also a thing. So we know that, we had COVID in 2020. And so COVID put everything on pause. The NBA actually came back in their bubble in July and finished the season. Their season got finished, I want to say, in October? They finished the season in October because teams got to play a few regular season games, and then the playoffs started. The season ended in October. The season restarted before Christmas. So think about that for teams like the Lakers and the Heat and the Bucks and these teams that had nice playoff runs. They had a quick turnaround, but everybody had a quick turnaround. I mean, if you're just being honest, and a lot of NBA stars were not fans of this. They were like, "Yo, that's not enough time to allow our bodies to recover from a NBA season." Now, granted, we had a 4-month break during the season because of COVID, right? They paused it from March to July. But at the same time, they got back to playing NBA games, and a quick turnaround like that is not good for the body. It's not good for the players. It's not good for these abnormal size human beings, right? Like, think about it. NBA players are abnormally big, 6'10", 7 feet, 6'8". Like, whatever. Like, it's not normal. The average height of an American man is 5'10". These men are a foot taller than that, right? So they felt like the turnaround was too quick. LeBron James was the number one advocate of this. The number one advocate of the season shouldn't start until MLK Day. And instead, the NBA were like, yo, we're losing way too much money if we start in January and mid-January as opposed to before Christmas. We got to get these Christmas Day games in. Like that isn't an option. Starting at MLK Day, because of the collective bargaining, because of all the cable money, because of all the money that's on the table and that will be lost, like hundreds of millions of dollars, we're not starting in January. We're starting before Christmas, like, period. And so since then, we have seen a ton of injuries, especially late in the season. especially late in the season, including these playoffs. Kyrie Irving went down these playoffs. Chris Paul went down during these playoffs. Devin Booker, hell, he hasn't missed a game, but he's got a broken nose. Now Giannis, Trae Young. There were 8 All-Stars that had missed the game during the playoffs. Anthony Davis. During the season, you had Jamal Murray get hurt, torn ACL. Kawhi Leonard has gotten hurt during the playoffs. LeBron James got hurt during the season. He's normally an Iron Man. Like, there was a ton of injuries for NBA players this year. There were a ton of injuries for NBA players this year. There were a ton of injuries, especially late in the year for NBA players. Donovan Mitchell missed significant time, like a number of games, like 20 games. That's why he missed all NBA teams. Like, this is horrible. And now a guy who has been fairly stable throughout his career, Giannis Antetokounmpo, has gone down with a non-contact injury. Nobody was around him. He didn't step on anyone's foot. He didn't do anything. I mean, there was nothing malicious by anyone. It was just a non-contact injury. That was unfortunate. And it's got a lot of people questioning whether this NBA season was rushed. And it's got a lot of people questioning whether this NBA season was worth it to come back that fast and to have all of these NBA superstars. Like, these aren't even just regular players. No offense to the regular everyday NBA player, but these NBA superstars, the ones that people pay the money to go see, are hurt. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Trae Young, Chris Paul. Like, that's rough. Kawhi Leonard. That is rough stuff. And that's not a good look for the league. The league's like, I know they got to be like, dang, all our guys are hurt, or all our guys keep getting hurt now. Granted, knock on wood, these guys are professional athletes. So at any moment, you can get hurt. Like, the numbers are abnormal, but maybe you could just say that's just like an abnormal year. Like, sometimes you have more injuries in one year than the others. It's just like an outlier type of year. But LeBron James, who made a statement about this a couple weeks ago, is saying, no, these numbers are abnormal because we did rush back. I am someone who puts a lot of money and a lot of time into my body. And so I'm someone that you can ask about rushing back and not getting the proper rest from a season. We are getting hurt. He says we, as in the players, are getting hurt at an abnormal rate this season because we rushed the season back. That's what LeBron has come out and said. He wrote in a big, long Facebook post. Then he put it on Twitter, and it's all everywhere. It's like, yo, this is abnormal because these guys haven't had the proper rest. All of us, we haven't had the proper rest. And it's a bad look for the NBA because now, we're talking about a conference final series right now, both of them. Let's add both of them into context. There's 4 teams left in the NBA conference finals, in the Western and Eastern Conference finals. Atlanta, Milwaukee, the Clippers, and the Suns. Out of those 4 teams, the Clippers, now Milwaukee, and Atlanta, their best players are hurt. Trae Young's got an ankle, Kawhi Leonard's got a knee, and now Giannis has got a knee problem. And then on Phoenix Suns, Chris Paul just came back from COVID, and Devin Booker's got a broken nose. so he's playing, but he's got a freaking, his nose is crooked. So we're talking about 3 of the 4 teams' best players are out, can't even play because of injury. And the 4th team, the Suns, had one guy that was in COVID protocol, and the other guy who's got to wear a mask because he broke his nose. Maybe it's just, like I said, coincidence. Maybe it's just like, this is just an anomaly type of year. But this is what's happening in the NBA right now. Super strange. Super, super strange. Now back to Atlanta versus Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Bucks, I wrote this. I was in a group chat last night after the game, and I was just so disappointed in the Bucks. And here's why. The Bucks had a perfect opportunity, even before the Giannis injury. They had a perfect opportunity to really put their foot on the neck of the Atlanta Hawks, and they couldn't do it. They lose the first quarter. They lose the second quarter. They're down double digits at halftime. They're down double digits at halftime. They are down double digits at halftime. Giannis doesn't get hurt until the third quarter. So they were down double digits at halftime, knowing that they could go up 3-1 and head back to Milwaukee to end this series in 5. Without Trae Young. You got to remember, Trae Young didn't play. Trae Young was out in game 4. Knowing that they could go up 3-1 and head back to home to end this series, to punch a ticket to the NBA Finals for the first time in, 50 years, to have a chance to really win an NBA title for the first time since 1971. 50 years since Kareem and Oscar Robinson. But instead, they came out lollygagging and playing around and messing around and doing all this crazy stuff and, not really hooping. Drew Holiday wasn't hooping. Chris Middleton wasn't hooping. And Giannis was up there airballing free throws. Let's just call it what it was. It was not a good performance by the Milwaukee Bucks to start this game. Then the third quarter, Giannis started feeling it. He was getting easy buckets. He was doing Giannis type things. It was like, okay, maybe they finally woken up. Maybe they finally woken up and realized, even with Trae Young, on paper, we're a better team. We just have a better roster, even with Trae Young. But these guys don't even have Trae Young in this game. So we should be hitting them in the freaking mouth. And so Giannis finally understood, maybe I should stop shooting jump shots and start getting to the basket and do what I do best. Because they can't guard me. John Collins, bless his heart, there's nothing he can do. Clint Capella, there's nothing he can do when Giannis is in attack mode. There's literally, absolutely, positively nothing those men can do when Giannis is in attack mode. So then he started being in attack mode. But this is what happens when you mess around. Because they messed around in the first half and got down double digits, you can't predict the Giannis injury. You can't predict that your best, just like Atlanta couldn't predict Trae Young was going to go out in last game. You can't predict your best player is going to get hurt. But what happens is when you mess around in the first half and you're down double digits, and then you compound it with the injury to your best player, now you don't have a chance in hell to win this game. And then you get blown out by 20 points. And now the series is tied 2-2, while Trae Young is getting healthier and could potentially play in game 5. Your best player is at least going to miss game 5. If you're lucky, it's just game 5. The chances are with that injury, the way his knee buckled like that, he's probably going to miss the rest of this series. And so why it was so critical that you win game 5 or game 4 with Trae Young out is if Giannis needs extra time to rest, you would get it if he has a chance of coming back for the finals. But now, no, you lose game 4. It's tied 2-2, and the minimum this series goes is 6. And it could potentially and probably will go 7 games. That's not that that's just that's why it was so frustrating. That's why the Bucks had me so mad, because it's like they're probably still going to make the NBA Finals. Knock on wood, if Giannis is okay and can come back this series, or even if he doesn't come back this series, and if he can come back in the finals, or hell, even if he misses the rest of the playoffs, the Bucks on paper are a better team than Atlanta. Atlanta was a 5 seed, y'all. We got to remember, the Hawks were a 5 seed in these playoffs. The Hawks were a 5 seed in these playoffs. The Knicks were ahead of them in their first round series. Philadelphia was ahead of them in their second round series. And now Milwaukee is ahead of them in this series. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. So they are a 5 seed. So on paper, your roster is better than theirs. You had more wins in the regular season than they did. But if Trae Young is there and Giannis isn't, those scales, even though, you were struggling already, gets a whole lot more even. And now even maybe Atlanta's better than Milwaukee. Because Atlanta's clearly a better team than they were during the regular season. Atlanta is clearly a better team than they were during the regular season. Atlanta is clearly a better team than they were during the regular season. Prayers up to Giannis, man. I hope he can, come back. I don't want to. I absolutely positively know he will miss game 5. There's no doubt in my mind he's gonna come back and play in game 5. To me, that's not even smart. It wouldn't be smart because Game 5 is not an elimination game. Now, you have a chance to go up 3-2 in Game 5, or you have a chance to go down 3-2 in Game 5. And that, to me, will determine if he's now. This is all granted if it's not like more severe than we even expect or even know. But seeing him walk on his own was a good sign, but that doesn't always mean everything, right? Like you could still have a slight tear or still have, a very severe strain or whatever. But seeing him walk on his own definitely was a good sign. But yeah, I mean, not Atlanta, Milwaukee, let's focus on them. They're so frustrating because at times, like I said, they defeated the Brooklyn Nets, and the Brooklyn Nets was hobbled like crazy. James Harden was running around on one leg. Kyrie Irving wasn't there. Like they were super hobbled. But Milwaukee has talent on their team. PJ Tucker can play. Chris Middleton can play and like really play at times. Drew Holiday can play and like really play at times. Brook Lopez can play. Obviously, Giannis is a 2-time MVP. But messing around with Atlanta in the first half cost them this game. They weren't ready for this game. And obviously, like I said, you can't predict injuries. But when you come out that lackadaisical, that like too cool for school, that like, oh, we're up 2-1 in this series and don't want to really take control, like a stranglehold on this series. When you get caught by surprise with something like, I don't know, an injury to your best player, it can really cost you. And that first half of that game against the Hawks it sounds dramatic, but could essentially cost them this series. Because if they would have came out on fire in the first half and actually, I don't know, built a double-digit lead instead of going down double digits, even with the Giannis injury, say the Giannis injury still happens, you still have a puncher's chance of winning that game. But instead, you get down double digits, then your best player goes out, and now you don't have a chance in hell of winning the game. Now you don't. Now you're looking forward to Game 5 because Game 4 is over. It is over. Especially when you allow guys to come off the bench for the Hawks, like Lou Williams, to light it up for 21 points. Kevin Huerter, Bogey, both in double figures. Cam Reddish to get 12 huge points. Hadn't played. I don't know if Cam Reddish had played 20 total minutes in this entire series before this game. And he got 23 minutes last night and put up 12 big points, 12 huge points. Obviously, Lou Williams, 21 points starting in place of Trae Young. Huge in 35 minutes. Like huge, big time shots being made. We're just going to have to see how they bounce back, man. We're just going to leave your thoughts in the chat. Who do you think takes this series now that it's 2-2? It's the first team to 2 wins. Best out of 3 series. It went from a best out of 7 now to the best out of 3. The first team to 2 wins wins this series. And potentially Giannis could be out for an extended amount of time. And Trae Young, they haven't updated his injury status. I think he's closer to coming back. Obviously, a lot closer to coming back than Giannis. He's already missed a game. But Justin Rich says the Hawks. The Hawks have a ton of momentum. They have a ton of momentum. And the thing about the Hawks, one, they're way ahead of schedule. I think I mentioned this on podcasts before, but the Hawks making it to the Eastern Conference Finals was not supposed to happen. One, they're a 5 seed. Like, they're 2 games away from the NBA Finals, and they're a freaking 5 seed. 2, they're a team full of kids. Their best player is 22 years old. Kevin Huerter is like 25. John Collins is like 24. Bogdan, I'm not sure. Bogdan and Gallinari and Lou Williams, they're more veterans, but Clint Capella's still in his 20s. Like, they are way ahead of schedule. Nwaku off the bench is like 20. Cam Reddish is either 20 or 21. Like, they're way DeAndre Hunter, who's hurt in this series, but he's another rotational piece who gets a lot of minutes. He's like 23, 24. Like, this team is way ahead of schedule. They're not supposed to be here. Veteran teams normally win in the NBA playoffs, not kids, not teams like the Hawks. What the Heat did last year with a bunch of kids like Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and all of that, that was like an anomaly. And they kind of fell back to reality this season. And then Well, at least it looked like an anomaly. But then the Hawks did the exact same thing this year. They started off horrible. The Hawks were lottery bound first half of the season. And then they fired Lloyd Pierce and put in Nate McMillan. And then they caught fire. Shot all the way up to the 5th seed of the Eastern Conference, standings, and have upset the Knicks and have upset the Philadelphia 76ers. And now are 2 games away from the NBA Finals. 2 games away from the finals with a team full of kids and a coach that got fired from Indiana last year and a coach that started this season off as an assistant with a coach that technically has an interim term on his name right now. He's not even complete full-time head coach. He's an interim head coach, Nate McMillan. A coach that hadn't been outside the first round in 5 years. Nate McMillan the last 4 years would get Indiana to the playoffs, but they lose in the first round every year. That's why they fired him in Indiana. And somehow, some way, they find themselves with the 22-year-old undersized point guard 2 games away from the NBA Finals. Crazy to think about. Super, super crazy to think about. Man, what a story that is. What a story that would be if the Hawks, Atlanta, make it to the NBA Finals. Like I said, literally before the All-Star break was headed for the Cade Cunningham sweepstakes and now could potentially be in the NBA Finals. And so the Clippers and I love the unpredictability too, Justin. It's crazy. It's really crazy to think about. So the Clippers and the Phoenix Suns play game 6 tonight. And ooh-wee, that is going to be a hell of a game because it's make or break for a lot of players in this game. Paul George, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, like a lot of legacies are going to be made and broken tonight. Paul George last game in game 5 put up historic numbers, 41-12 or 41-13 and 6. Can he do it again? Can he repeat that type of performance? Leave your thoughts in the chat. Do you believe Paul George can repeat that type of performance? Because I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if Paul George can repeat a 41-13 and 6 type of performance and force a game 7 in Phoenix. He'll get a chance to do it at home. With CP3, he looked old last game. And that's the thing about Chris Paul. All year, he looked like vintage Chris Paul. Like a vintage Chris Paul, like how he did 10 years ago. Just hooping, facilitating offense, had Phoenix as the number 2 seed in the NBA. They had the second best record in the NBA. And then at times in these playoffs, he doesn't look like vintage Chris Paul. He just looks like an old Chris Paul, like just an old man, like the 35-year-old that he is, Chris Paul. In last game, game 5, he looked like old Chris Paul, like an old version of himself. And they can't have that 2 games in a row. They cannot have that 2 games in a row, especially this series changed. This Phoenix Suns versus Clippers series changed when Patrick Beverley started Gordon Devin Booker. When Ty Lue, shout out to Ty Lue, man. We don't, basketball coaches, I think a lot of times, especially the really good ones and successful ones, don't get the credit that they deserve as far as like making in-game adjustments and game-to-game adjustments. This series changed when Ty Lue inserted Patrick Beverley into the starting lineup to guard Devin Booker. Because Devin Booker hasn't been the same since game 1. He's got the worst field goal percentage of any player left in these playoffs. And that all started. The flip switched. The switch flipped when Patrick Beverley started defending him. He started forcing turnovers, started frustrating him, started getting up under him, making him uncomfortable every single shot that he takes. Jay Falk says if the Clippers win this series, what will they do with Kawhi? That's interesting. They don't do nothing. He'll resign and he'll play with the team. He'll probably miss a lot of next season because I think they're hiding Kawhi's. I got totally sidetracked. But I think they're hiding the severity of Kawhi's injury. People are asking, why is Kawhi sitting in the box right? Like if you hear like on the broadcast and some different podcasters are saying like, why is Kawhi Leonard sitting in the box and not on the sideline with his team? And the reason why I believe this is me total speculation. I have no idea, but I think he might have a brace or a cast on his leg, and they're hiding it by putting him in the box, right? Because they've never come out and said Kawhi Leonard's official injury. They've never come out and said Kawhi. All they said is a knee sprain. Shams early said potential ACL tear. That Shams Charania from The Athletic said a potential, they're scared and fearful that it's a potential ACL tear and that he'll miss the rest of the playoffs. I think it's closer to what Shams said than what they're reporting, than what the Clippers are putting out. And that's why they have him up in the box to hide a potential brace or cast that I think is on his leg. Because every time they take a shot of him, he's not standing, he's sitting, and you can't see his legs. That's not by accident. He's not on the sideline with his teams. He's at the games, but he's not on the sideline. I think that's because he has a brace or a cast on his leg, and they're trying to hide that. So, yeah, if they win and they win the championship, he'll re-sign, and him and Paul George will be teammates for years to come. PG-13 needs to become the rated R superstar. And that's the thing about PG. I've said this time and time again. If you look at Paul George as a basketball player, there are no weaknesses really in his game. He's got a tight handle. He can score at all three levels. He's a really good free throw shooter. He's a good passer. Not a great passer, but a good one. And he's 6'8", long, and can defend. 6'8", 6'9", long, can defend, get steals. There's no weaknesses in this man's game. The only weakness in his game is himself. He gets in his own head a lot of times. That's the only weakness in Paul George's game. So can he be that rated R superstar? Absolutely. He's just not consistent enough. He just doesn't do it all the time. That's the only problem. Consistency. That's the difference between like a LeBron James and a Kevin Durant and the Paul Georges. There's no weaknesses in none of these guys' games. Well, LeBron's might be free throws. LeBron might have the most glaring weaknesses out of those three, to be honest. But these guys are consistent. I know what they're going to give me. I know every time Kevin Durant steps out on the court, he's going to give me X, Y, and Z. I know it, no doubt in my mind. And if he needs to take it up a notch, he can up that. Whatever it is X, Y, and Z are, he can up those. Paul George, I don't know if I'm going to get that every night. Those are the difference between those guys, LeBron James, the Kevin Durant, the James Hardens, or whatever, and like the Paul Georges and the Chris Middletons, guys who are supremely talented and really aren't no weaknesses in their games, but they're just very inconsistent. So those are the biggest differences. Why we ain't speaking about how the NBA derailed the black coaches for Becky Hammon. That's interesting. I might have to talk about that in a different podcast. I don't know if they derailed the black coaches. You had Epe Udoka got a job. I hope I said his name right. He got the job with Boston. Jason Kidd got the job in Dallas. Chauncey Billups got the job with the Portland Trailblazers. So that's three black coaches right there. So I don't know if the NBA derailed anything. Three black coaches just got hired like within the last 2 weeks. So I'm not sure about that. When you got to fill me in on the other stuff. I know they are pushing for a team to hire Becky Hammon, though. That is true. They are definitely pushing for a team to hire Becky Hammon. They want Becky Hammon to be the head coach of somebody's team. I just don't know who's going to be the team that's going to be bold enough to hire a woman to run their organization. And that's not no disrespect to Becky Hammon, but it's never been done before. So I don't know who's going to be that team to step over the ledge and hire a woman to run an NBA team. And I guess it'll be a really good day when it happens, but I just want to know who the team's going to be. And clearly there hasn't been one to step up and do it quite yet. It says exactly, bro. I think it's way more serious than that. Yeah, I mean, I think they're hiding him in the box. I think he has a brace, a cast on, and they're hiding him up in the box. So we'll see, what happens with Kawhi Leonard. When are you going to talk about the NFL racism towards black running back? It might be another podcast. I don't. You know how these organizations are, man. And when it comes to running backs, I don't necessarily know if it's racism that plays a part in like the way they treat the running backs, because the NFL is 75% black. So if you're going to be racist, you're going to be racist to all the positions, in quarterback more so than running back, to be honest. I just think the way the game is going, the NFL like teams aren't giving a crap about the running backs anymore. Like they feel like they're disposable. And it hurts. The problem that hurts running backs is that the ones that go in like the later rounds or undrafted, a lot of times are better than these first rounders. Like they end up being like really, really freaking good. Dalvin Cook went late round. I think he went second round. Alvin Kamara went like the fourth round. You know, like a lot of these, the James Robinson out of who plays for Jacksonville went undrafted, had 1,000 yards. Jonathan Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts had almost 1,000 yards, went in the second or third round. Like, so the NFL, the running back, the problem is you can get a really, really good one outside of the first round. And then when it comes time to pay them, Derrick Henry went in the second round. And then when it comes time to pay them, you feel like, well, I struck gold with you in the draft or in free agency, like as an undrafted free agent. So I don't want to pay you because I feel like I can get another you later in the draft or late in free agency. Running backs come a dime a dozen, whereas like quarterbacks, you don't get like a lot of times you don't get great quarterbacks outside the first round or outside the first two rounds. Dak Prescott's and stuff like that are rare, right? But in running backs, they come a dime a dozen. So 10 out of every 12 are pretty good. A PG-13 ain't doing well. PG-13 is hooping. We're not going to act like he's just being garbage. Yes, they did hype up Becky Hammond. I mean, yeah, they've hyped up Becky Hammond. They're trying to get her a job. They're trying to get her as the head coach of somebody's team. So I'm not saying so I don't know. Like I definitely think they want to give her a job as a head coach or somewhere. It also depends on the system they go into. Yeah, when it comes to the running backs, yeah. Like, but the thing is, a lot of running backs, like I said, I mean, they're good. Like the running backs coming out of college and the ones, like I said, that you can get in the late rounds are like really freaking good. J.K. Dobbins for the Baltimore Ravens was a second round pick. I think a running back that's really good that went in like the fourth round is the guy out of Oklahoma State. He plays for the Carolina Panthers now. I can't even think of his name. I think he's going to be a really good NFL player, and he went like the fourth round. So, yeah, running backs, Najee, of course, like Najee Harris and the guy out of Clemson, I can't think of his name, the Jaguars. Najee Harris went to Pittsburgh. The guy out of Clemson, ETN. I think they're going to be really good players, but I think there's going to be like some surprise running backs that went in the second, third, and fourth round. It'll be really, really good. So that's the thing. Todd Gurley should not be on the market, man. Todd Gurley has not been good for a few years. He's stayed injured. He's only 26 though. So that's the thing about Todd Gurley. He's only 26 years old, so I am interested to see what happens with him moving forward. But to wrap this all up, guys, we've got Game 6 with the Clippers versus the Phoenix Suns tonight. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on this video. Thank you guys for tuning in. I am Jeff Lightsey Jr. at the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at VF Sports Show. We post content on there all the time. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on your way out. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow morning. We're here every weekday morning, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. So if you're on Central Time, it's 9 a.m. If you're on the East Coast, 10 a.m. Eastern. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Peace.